There's a huge period of uncertainty at the moment in the city. So commercial tenants are grappling with what space they need, how they best use that space, how they encourage their workforce back into the office, basically. And there's a huge mix of views in different organisations. So, depending on the nature of the business. So if you've got office space, people are, now used to working from home. People are sort of obliged to offer flexible, agile working, because people are sort of saying, well, we have an office of 400 people. If people are only going to be in 3 days a week, coupled with the fact that there's lots of businesses where cash flow is a real issue at the moment. So how are they going to survive, get their business back up and running? So if you're thinking commercial space, retail, hospitality, some of those businesses won't survive. Some of them will need landlords to really cooperate with them to keep the space and to enable them to meet the rent payments. Well, I think one of the biggest challenges for the landlords has been sort of the shift in power, in that, historically, landlords in urban centres had a lot of power when it came to negotiations with their tenants. Rental levels were going up, and that shifted. So landlords now are thinking, well, if we don't come to the table and proactively negotiate with our tenants, people will either fold or they'll decide to exercise break clauses, that there's no benefit really for landlords to be sitting on lots of empty space. It impacts their property valuation, it impacts ability to comply with their own covenants. There was a lot of sympathy for the tenant during the pandemic. Businesses were closed, there was no income generation. There was less sympathy, I think, for the landlord. The landlord sitting on big property portfolios where, like I said, rental values have been going up over the years. Big real estate businesses have been making quite a lot of money, comfortably complying with lender covenants on their debt facilities, to suddenly having no cash inflow from tenants who were unable to pay, having to give rent holidays, offering more lease incentives. And I think importantly, reflecting the sort of the new requirements of the commercial space in London. There's certainly a short to medium term change in the environment and the sort of dynamic between the landlord and tenant. Will that be a long-term change? I think that the style of working and working habits changes that we've undergone is here to stay. I don't think it will be a permanent, everybody wants to work from home forever, because there's a social element to working that the office environment allows you to enjoy. But I certainly think that landlords' flexibility with their premises to allow businesses to have an office space that they want, that is modern, and I don't think it will be exclusively that's the landlord who has to pay for everything, but certainly for the near term, I think landlords are having to come to the table with offers of incentives to enable businesses to make those changes to their space. The changes to how businesses operate impacts more than just the business itself, so it impacts all of the support functions, it impacts what their requirements are, and it impacts on, as I said before, how much space is needed. I think one of the things we're seeing is landlords considering what they do with their buildings. So whereas previously it might have been a fully let office building, now there's discussions ongoing in town, looking for change of use planning permissions. So you might have had a mixed use building with retail at the bottom and offices above. What else could you do with that space, given there is still a shortage of housing supply? There's lots of conversations going on about, well, can we repurpose buildings that were office, admittedly with a lot of spend required, into residential, for example? And that's something that everyone is having to consider, because there's a recognition that there's too much office space that won't be needed going forwards. There's prospects for growth in the economy again, and that there's a hope that new businesses will arrive or emerge and start to flourish again. I think there is a general expectation that people won't work from home forever, albeit there won't be the volume of traffic in terms of number of people going in on a daily basis. I think there's a willingness amongst the sort of landlord-tenant community to engage in proactively together to make offices the space we want in the future. So I'd be feeling quite positive about the future outlook for city centres, for tenants and landlords alike, that we will have a continued uptick, a return to sort of growth in the economy will help, and government support for those businesses that need it. It won't be the same as we were used to. And there's a lot of positives in that as well. People want to be flexible, they want to be agile, they want to be able to work in a way that suits their personal circumstances, and that's something that the pandemic has forced onto people and actually will be positive.